A spouse or partner of the ADHD person feels or often can feel like a manager,
Yeah. Or worse, a parent.
a parent.
And that's not sexy. Yeah, it's so interesting because I think that the best way out of that dynamic, that push pull of like manager, managee, or parent child dynamic between partners is really capitalizing on the ADHD spouse's strengths. What do they bring to the table? So, for example, do I do the laundry? No, but I manage all the finances. So, like, I'm the one keeping track of the budget, making sure that we're investing, communicating with the accountant. That to me is interesting. That's a valuable contribution to our home, right? And so, sure, I'm not going to be doing the laundry every day, but I'm going to make sure the bills are paid. I'm going to make sure that we have money going into retirement, like those kinds of. And if we can really begin to set up our lifestyles based on strengths and not necessarily gender roles, like traditional roles, if we can, if the non ADHD partner can see the good in what the ADHD partner brings to the table. And my husband says this to me all the time because I will say every day, thank you so much for doing the laundry. I'll have like a pile of folded clothes on the bed. Be like, thank you so much for doing this. And he doesn't say you're welcome. He says, we all have our jobs. That's what he says. We all have our jobs. He's just, and in that, this is actually the first time that I'm thinking about this. Like he's validating, he's taking my thank you, but he's saying, I know that you contribute as well. We all have our jobs. And if we can just kind of begin to build out what are the specific jobs, even if you and your partner don't have ADHD, but like what are you bringing to the table, to the family unit, and how can you identify that and like bless that in your spouse? Like, thank you for doing this. We all have our jobs. We're all doing our part here. I think that that is such a beautiful aspect of partnership.
Yeah, and you know what though? I think because you don't like doing it, you also see the value and have great gratitude. And I
Yes.
think couples and in relationships, they forget how valuable something as simple as thank you is.
Yes, it's
I'd
true.
love, we all would love to be at a point in our lives where we're like, ah, it's fine, because we've received so many thank yous
Right.
that, it's like, oh, basically what your husband's saying is, dude, I got it. Like, this is what I do. This is what you do. But you know
Right.
what? I think that's the second part. And that is we all have great marriages, great relationships in general have roles where
Yeah.
you do things for each other, with each other, and things the other person doesn't love doing.
Yes.
That's no different than a company. If you're running a big company, you do your unique ability and you hire around what it isn't. And
Yep.
that's not rocket science. That is very, very strategic, but
Yep.
it
I
works.
love that. I love approaching a partnership strategically. I think, we first got married, we were teeny tiny babies and we just kind of fell into like, he had very traditional boomer parents. I had very traditional boomer parents. And we just kind of like naturally followed those roles and it didn't work. It didn't work for us. There was a lot of it was just like, and once we started to unpack, like, what do you bring to the table? What do I bring to the table? And what can we hire out? If we have the resources, what can we say? We're just going to delegate this, right? Like, we're just not going to, this is not going to be a you thing or a me thing. And that's been such a grace in our lives as well, is using the resources that we have to support our ADHD family. Because we have a neurodivergent family. I'm neurodivergent. We have two neurodivergent kids. It can be a lot, right? And so what resources do we have that we can use to support what's happening here?
Yeah, I think I remember I loved playing soccer as an adult. And I remember starting my business, playing soccer on the weekend, and then coming home and having to cut the grass, something
Right.
I absolutely hate doing. And my
Right.
dad is the exact opposite. So the example I had growing up was my dad loves the mundane roles. He loves and you and I both, when we say these things, listeners can pick up on it. We both hate these things when we're
Yep.
talking about it, we're like, it's mundane, it's boring, it's
Yep.
awful.
Yep.
But it's not to other. My dad finds peace doing it. My dad loves it.
Mhm.
And I always think that he was lying. I was like, there's no way he really thinks that this is great. This is awful. And so I finally like, I remember like a year into owning a business, I barely was making enough, and I was like, "I'm hiring
Mhm.
someone to do this."
Yeah.
and I'm gonna work every Saturday morning because 'cause I'd rather work and earn enough to cover this than I would to do this job. And it's such a simple version, but it does make for a really big difference in your life.
100%. And I think there's this stigma that we're needing to unlearn within the ADHD community that it's like, I should do it. I can do it, right? Anybody can cut the grass. I can do it. So I should do it. And what I love to do is just like flip that around. No, you shouldn't. No, you shouldn't. If you have the resource, not everybody does, but if you have the resources to hire that out so that you can use your brain to connect with your kids, to work, to rest and restore yourself, that's what you should be doing.
Yeah, I had, one other funny story is I had someone that is super close to my wife and I, and we know them very well, and so they're like their husband-wife stories, and, she was so angry about putting the laundry away. She's like, "I'm already doing the laundry, but I'm not putting it in his drawer." It was like the line, and
Yeah.
she would get so mad about it, and I would laugh at her, and I was like, this is not that it's not that you've already done 95% of the work. Why are you so anti? He can put it in his own drawer. And what it is she is also, ADHD and heavily ADHD and, became medicated later in our lives and I
Mhm.
think a lot of things got better, but the point I'm making is she was so adamant on this one thing
I
and
love
it
it.
was causing major like, not major issues, but, like, it was bickering. Like, you know how we bicker in
Mhm.
marriages over stupid little tiny details? But
Mhm.
can you imagine? This sounds like lots of couples that are listening to this, they're like, "Oh, that's ridiculous." But then they're over there arguing about who put the spoon in the wrong drawer.
Exactly. Or one thing I hear all the time is you loaded the dishwasher wrong. A lot of people like to really micromanage how the dishwasher is getting loaded. And listen, I'm not open to feedback on how I load the dishwasher. I don't mean I hear it from my partner. I mean that I hear it in the community. Like,
No, no, I got it. It's okay if your partner says it too because
no, he don't care.
most people it sounds to me like he has no problem loading the dishwasher. You would just be like, if you're doing it to support, and so then you're like, "Look what I did. I loaded the dishwasher
And I
for
make him high
you."
five me when I'm done. I'm like, I load the dishwasher and I'm like, I go for a high five. He's like, are we really doing this? I'm like, you better believe it.
Yeah. It is so funny to me though because it does bring up some of the challenges and the self-awareness of just knowing yourself. Like, if
Mhm.
you know this is you, the how awesome is it that you find that there maybe is a reason and
Mhm.
it's how you're made, but the more comfortable you get with who you are and how you're made, the better you'll be in your relationship, the more honest you
Yes.
can be.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that comfort piece really is worth discussing because for so many of us, we were parented in a way that was like, what is wrong with you? Why can't you just do this? Why can't you just do your homework? Why can't you just pay attention in class? Why are you the kid out of all my kids that is like struggling in school? And like, so many of us were parented in ways that were like, brought us up to believe that we should be different than we are. And I think that is a real barrier to us then accepting ourselves and our ADHD and really embracing it in adulthood because it's like, well, I shouldn't be this way. This is actually like a character flaw. And what I realized when I was doing all of the research for the tutoring agency that I owned, and all these ADHD families would come to me and I would like, well, I didn't have the answer, so I would go and research. Well, that's how I learned about my ADHD. I was diagnosed at 21, but it wasn't until I was in my early 30s that I was doing this research and learning about it. And then I realized, oh my gosh, everything I hate about myself is connected to an ADHD symptom. Like I'm late, I interrupt people, I emotionally explode, I'm chaotic, I'm unpredictable, I'm impulsive. And I'm like, symptom. I'm like, I could not believe it. So once you begin to like pick apart, like what is actually like the personhood of who I am or like my character versus what is an ADHD symptom and can I accept the symptoms for what they really are? They're just symptoms. And now that I know that, I can choose to be medicated, I can choose to change my diet, I can choose to support myself with therapy and coaching and exercise and all of these different things. But it does take like really identifying like, okay, like, there is something going on here that is out of my control.
So YouTube has this cool feature where they pick the next video for you, and it's right here on this screen. So I hope you enjoy this next video.